to the show. My name is Chris. I host Comic Tropes, and I also host a weekly live stream here on my second channel, Pros and Cons. And I'm calling this show the Weekly Spinner Rack because what I like to do is start by doing a quick review of the books that I picked up this past week, the comics that I picked up. And then I'll be drawing something and I'll be monitoring the chat room to take questions from you all. So, sincerely appreciate people being here. It means a lot to me. Let's see, I'm just making sure that I've got the chat window open in front of me. Hello to Shane, Dan, Iron Shell, and Mr. Howell. Nice to have everybody here. Sincerely appreciate it. Starting to see a little bit of traction on this second channel, so that's nice. Hello, James Stewart. Nice to see people returning. I really appreciate that. Well, I don't want to waste too much time. I want to get right into the show. So, this week, I didn't pick up a lot. It was kind of a light week for me, to be honest. But that's okay. I did like a bunch of what I picked up. Let me start with this. James Stokoe, his comic Orphan and the Five Beasts came out. Issue 3 finally came out. It's been a little while. I didn't check when issue 2 came out, but it feels like it's been definitely more than a month. But here's the thing. Everything in this book is by one man. Look at that. Script, art, letters, and cover. The only stuff I guess he's not doing is, the editorial and publication and print stuff. He's doing everything on this book. So if this takes a little more than a month, if this comes out like every 2 months, I'm fine with that. It's one creator's singular vision, and that's worth waiting for, in my opinion. I'd love it to come out faster, but that's okay. This is a martial arts story with some sort of a bit of mystical, supernatural bent to it. It's a lot like an American manga, basically. This one lady has defeated, last issue, one of the 5 titular beasts, who are people that were trained by her master, sort of mastered one technique among many, and then went out into the world and sort of became corrupt. So she's now controlling Thunder Thighs, the late Thunder Thighs gang. He was obviously a master of kicks and stuff. And it's fun, and it's funny, and it also gets creepy, because they meet this really strange proprietor, a cook, at a really popular restaurant, and people just cannot resist his cooking. It's disturbing. There's a twist to it, and it's not exactly the twist that you would expect. I'm gonna refrain from going any further with the pages, but anyway, really fun, exciting, energetic art, even when it's not fight scenes. Colors are vibrant. Everything is one man's really cool idea. It does so much well. Some people might not love the art style. Beauty's in the eye of the beholder. I really like this stuff. I think that this is a really cool comic. Yeah, Stokoe did an Aliens book that was pretty cool. That was Aliens Dead Orbit 4-issue series. Marvel has not reprinted that yet. Marvel now owns that. It was one of the last Alien books that Dark Horse did when they had the license. I think I reviewed that in a past live stream, because I got that fairly recently, actually. Anyway, an artist and writer that I like. This is actually kind of similar in a way. That's interesting. Firepower by Robert Kirkman and Chris Samnee. Colors by the amazing Matt Wilson. But whereas this one feels like an American's take on manga, this almost feels like an American take on anime, if that makes sense. I definitely get a lot of vibes of an American cartoon that was meant to evoke those same things, Avatar: The Last Airbender. And this issue is really just building up this new threat, this guy that can control snakes, and he's way more powerful than the hero here, He can send snakes out that like both kill and control people. The main guy has fireball powers, like Ryu from Street Fighter. But it ends up being really of no use against this big new villain. Chris Samnee is a fantastic artist, definitely has form and structure down to a science. So this is always a fun book to read. I think that Robert Kirkman's having fun with it. I wouldn't say I'm engaged with this the same way I definitely was with books like Invincible and Walking Dead. But it does remind me of some of his other superhero books that he did along the way. Tech Jacket, Astounding Wolfman, Capes, kind of that like tier of superhero stuff. It's fun. It's not quite as cool and unique as this, that's all. Like, this just isn't giving me quite enough that's like stuff that I haven't seen before. But it is great artwork, and it moves at a great pace. I mentioned this one recently. I love crime comics, just to be clear. Latest issue of Good Asian came out. This is set in 1920s, I think, America. It's really just getting out of the Great Depression, or just going into it. It's around the Great Depression, and it follows Edison Hark, who is one of the first Chinese American police officers. He's a detective, and he was made so on Hawaii, where that was sort of a thing, but it really wasn't in stateside America. So, even though he's got the authority of being a police officer, he's investigating a missing persons case with his adoptive family in San Francisco, California, and he does not really have much support. Like, even though he's technically a police officer, he doesn't have much support. But he's a really smart guy. He's a bit of a bastard. He's in love with his adopted, white sister, but feels like they can't be together for a wide variety of reasons, to be honest. Anyway, he's investigating a missing persons case that goes way deeper. There's a legend of a Chinese killer that worked for the Tong crime syndicate, but last issue he found out that guy, like, posing as that killer is actually a white guy, but still knows kung fu and stuff. So that's pretty weird. And anyway, it's getting deeper and deeper. Great artwork, great mystery. I don't know where it's going, and that's what I want out of a crime comic. It's also got a really interesting lead. So this is like one that people are probably sleeping on, but it's quite good. The Good Asian. Yeah, even like the title starts to make sense, like the more you read about it, because this guy's just so conflicted about like who he is. He was like raised in large part by a rich white family, but he's Chinese at a time when like the Chinese were just treated awful, just awful. Moving on, another crime comic, issue number 1. So this is one that's easy to get in on the ground floor for. Geez, that's interesting. That's 3 comics out of the 4 that I've looked at so far are all from Image. So way to go, Image. Lots of diverse stuff from them. I would love recommendations on what superhero comics from like Marvel and DC are really good right now, because I've sort of fallen out there. I'm looking for an entry point for a good superhero crime comic. I've read a little bit of the latest Daredevil stuff. I like crime comics. That's pretty good. I've read the Superman Son of Kal-El. I like that. And I loved Immortal Hulk, but that run just wrapped up. So I'm sort of looking for... Oh, I'm also reading Inferno for X-Men. So I'm reading a couple things. That's obviously not much. I know a lot of people out there read a lot more superhero stuff. I would love to hear recommendations of what currently coming out, like superhero stuff, is at the top of your list. Like, if you get it, that's the first thing you read. I would love to... I think we all do that, right? Like, if we buy a few comics, we kind of like put like the stuff that we love the most that we'll read the fastest on the top. I think most of us do that. I certainly do that. I'd love to hear about that. Newburn is such a cool premise. Now, it's by Chip Zdarsky and artist Jacob Phillips. But if you like stuff by Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips, it almost feels like it's of a piece with that. Chip Zdarsky's a really versatile writer. He's written some stuff that I've really fallen for lately. Well, I talked about Daredevil, but I also loved his Spider-Man life story. Reading Sex Criminals with him and Matt Fraction. That's interesting. That's different. Chip Zdarsky. I'm going to have to read more by him because I really like what I've seen. Okay, so I say it's a crime comic. Here's the unique angle. Newburn is the title, is the last name and what he goes by of like the main guy, okay? Newburn used to be a police officer. Now he's sort of a private eye, but here's what he specifically does. He works for the organized crime families. Not just one of them. He works for all of them. So anytime somebody gets like killed that wasn't like authorized to be killed, or something goes wrong, like money goes missing, and the crime families would normally be ready to go to war with each other, he comes in and works as an independent detective to solve this mystery to keep the crime families from killing each other, because he just feels like that there's peace and harmony in that balance, and so he is still working for criminals, and it's great. Like this, look at the pacing of this. I'm flipping over the cover, and I had to like try to. I'm like, what page did I miss? I didn't miss a page. They put the first page of the comic on the inside cover. I don't recall ever seeing that before. Okay, it made me pause and just pay a little more attention, because I'm going, okay, it's not like overly important. It doesn't like shake anything up too much, but at the same time, I'm going, they're trying something different. They're trying to make me pay attention, and I am paying attention. So in this first one, he just is investigating a murder of a guy that's like related to a mafia, but like isn't a made man or anything like that. But he's just trying to like keep the peace and everything, figure out like who killed him, and this isn't much of a spoiler because this is more of a setup for like the premise. He finds out that it's like this guy's neighbor had like sort of ingratiated herself and like set up like some money to be stolen, but she did it in a very clever way, and instead of turning her in, he just goes like, I want you to work for me. All right, well, that's interesting. Why does he want her? Like, she seems dangerous. She had somebody killed for money. But and he's a former cop, so like the other cops don't really look at him very well. If you look at the artwork, it definitely is kind of reminiscent, I think, of Sean Phillips. But Jacob Phillips is still his own guy. It's really clear. The story moves at a brisk pace. If you like crime comics, Newburn seems awesome. Oh, yeah, you guys are mentioning some comics that I should read, and Excellent by Milligan and Allred. I'll definitely read that, just to be clear, because I loved their X-Force/Ecstatics run. I made an episode about it. I think it's one of like the best runs in sort of X-Men or mutant history. Like I think that one's fantastic. Now I've got just a few back issues that I picked up. I always try to pick up some random good back issues. First one, this is fun. This is 1991. DC Comics teamed up with 2000 AD, the British publisher, to give us the first Batman Judge Dredd story. And it has artwork by Simon Beasley. How cool is that? We've got Judge Death as a villain. That's a perfect villain for like a superhero story with Batman. This is a fun comic, folks. Like, if you've never read it and you like Batman or you like Judge Dredd, they work pretty well together. I'll just say that. We've got Mean Machine here. So we've got like a bunch of like Judge Dredd villains. And they did some other team-ups, I think, down the road that used more like, Joker and stuff. But I like this, like seeing Batman go up against Judge Dredd's enemies. I guess, yeah, Scarecrow is involved, but That's more of like to help the plot move forward. Writers Alan Grant and John Wagner. Grant wrote a bunch of great Batman stuff in the 90s. John Wagner wrote a bunch of great Judge Dredd stuff. You've got like some top tier talent on this book, and I bet you could still find... I found this for a very reasonable price. I want to say something along the lines of $25, which I think for a comic from 1991 in this condition is very fair. And I bet you could find something similar, maybe even better, depending on your region of the country. Not Sam Keith artwork. That is Simon Beasley. Awesome, awesome artist. I guess we haven't seen a lot from him lately. He might be kind of older now. I don't know when he was born. I'd have to look that up. Very cool artwork. I loved Simon Beasley's work. He did like Lobo. He did a bunch of work on Lobo back in the 90s. He did like some Ninja Turtles stuff. Yeah, and he did a bunch of British stuff. Just such a cool artist. It's all like painted. It's raw. It's edgy. It's gritty, but like in a very authentic way. I don't feel like any of this is try hard or anything. Moving on, I found a great deal on a pretty classic X-Men issue. If you're not familiar with 137, this is the issue where Jean Grey originally dies, which at the time was meant to be permanent. Written by Chris Claremont, artwork by John Byrne. So this is remembered as like one of the all-time great runs of the era. It is great. Lots of great character building that, like, you know, the books are still sort of relying on in some ways. At this point, Jean Grey has really become consumed by the Dark Phoenix. She's destroyed a whole planet, and the Kree, Skrull, and Shi'ar empires are all united in making sure that, like, she gets killed. And the X-Men are especially Cyclops, are very determined to try to keep her alive, and they battle a bunch of aliens going after her in this, like, you know, final showdown. And I'm going to spoil it because this came out back in, like, what? I want to say, like, the early 80s? Like, real early 80s? 1980. September of 1980. And she, you know, she dies. Obviously, eventually she came back. But she dies by her own hand. That's what's cool. So, like, she sort of tricks Scott, Cyclops, into having her stand in front of an automated turret and allows it to shoot and kill her because she knows she's lost it. She cannot control the power inside of her. She knows she can kill entire planets at this point. She just knows it's too dangerous. And Cyclops is just devastated. He left the team after this. So it was really like losing both Jean Grey and or at the time Marvel Girl or Phoenix, you know, went by both names, and Cyclops. Great artwork, really classic story. A lot more text than you see in your average comic today when we compare this. Even the action scenes do have quite a bit of dialogue. Like, I think more dialogue than you get now. This is a double-sized issue, but this is a lot of story to pack in. Like, honestly, like, this would be like 3 issues today. Not like a double-sized issue. This would be like 3 issues. Mr. Howell is pointing out that was editor Jim Shooter's decision. He was like, look, Jean Grey killed a whole planet. Like, you've got to have consequences for this. Claremont and Byrne did not originally plan to kill her off. But I think it was the right decision. It really was. I just don't think you could instantly redeem her there. And even the retcon, it's cool in some ways to have gotten Jean Grey back, but it's a little messy because it, like, makes up stuff that you weren't privy to before. It says, like, oh yeah, Phoenix took over her form and put the real Jean Grey in a cocoon in the bottom of the East River. And it's sort of like, well, I mean, okay, but a little weird, right? Like, you know, it's a big retcon to bring her back. It was a big retcon. And the last thing I picked up, kind of weird, but from 1983, a Mad magazine, super special, just collecting their parodies on horror and sci-fi. Well, I like that stuff, and I like a lot of these artists back then. So it is black and white, and it's making jokes based on stuff from, like, you know, the 70s and early 80s. So not everybody is going to be like, oh, cool, a parody of Jaws or Close Encounters of the Third Kind. I get that. But the artwork itself is great. They've even got, like, some really older stuff here, making jokes about Frankenstein by some of, like, the original people that worked on Mad. I think, like, Will Elder, for instance, is in there. We've got Sergio Aragonés making fun of Star Wars. It's pretty cool in that regard. You know, I've never been a huge fan of Don Martin. I know some people love Don Martin stuff. I feel like just didn't work for me as well. But yeah, just like some of the artwork on this stuff was fantastic. I can look back at this and I really admire the artwork in Mad Magazine. You read it as a kid for the jokes, but the artwork was fantastic. Just some of the best people in the industry were working on that. All right. If you like Ram V and Al Ewing, Venom is your choice. Ram V? I don't know what Ram V is. But Venom, huh? I think, you know who I think, like, really brought Venom to the level that he's at now? And just to be clear, Venom has always been popular, right? Like, from the get-go, Venom was so popular, they started spinning him off, giving him his own titles and stuff. But I think he sort of bounced around with a bunch of miniseries and not a lot of direction. Until, in my opinion, and this is still fairly recent, I think that Rick Remender and Tony Moore, again, I'm biased because I love those guys, but I think that they did some really cool stuff with Venom, making Flash Thompson the host, Agent Venom. I thought that was awesome. And ever since then, I think he's been pretty strong. I think Donny Cates' run, played up some of the cosmic stuff to great effect. It really worked. You're like, okay, what's different about Venom than Spider-Man? Well, Spider-Man tends to fight street-level crime. Venom, he's a weird alien creature. They went cosmic with it, and it works. I think it works quite well. Oh, you're saying a newer writer. Ram V is a writer. A bunch of people are telling me, excuse me, not familiar. I'll try to get familiar. I'll give their Venom a shot. So today I mapped out real quickly a werewolf. Why did I do that? Well, it isn't based on anything in particular, but I am working kind of slowly but surely on a werewolf comic book. Not an ongoing, like just sort of a limited series. Like I've got like I think a cool story to tell with werewolves. I don't feel like there's a lot of good werewolf stories out there, period. There's only like a small handful of movies with werewolves that I think are any good. But I think that werewolves are a cool idea. I think they deserve better. I think I've got a cool idea for a werewolf story. So I was like, yeah, let's draw a werewolf and let's just sort of focus on inking, because if I can focus on the details, just drawing the fur and the shading and stuff, I can kind of turn my brain off for that and focus on taking questions from all of you. What's your opinion on the art of Jeff Sr.? Oh yeah, Jeff Sr. I remember I enjoyed Death's Head. I did like Death's Head. There's a character that's kind of weird, by the way. Death's Head. He's gone up against Doctor Who, the Transformers, and the Marvel Universe. Ties them all together. I can't honestly say that Jeff Sr.'s like a favorite, but, cool, scratchy, different. Definitely like among, because of just like my age when I discovered him, like among the first British artists I ever saw the work of. So we'll sort of always have a place in my heart or my memories because of stuff like that. We all know werewolf, but does anyone ask why wolf? No. That's a great question, Andrew. It's a great question. Middle Age Wolf, sequel to Teen Wolf. Y'all got jokes tonight. Everybody out there got jokes. Hey, it's me. It's Mr. Jokes. Hey. There's a lot of different ways you can go with, like, werewolf designs. Obviously, like, some of them just look like are wolves. Some of them are just sort of like men with fur all over themselves. My favorite is a bipedal wolf with, I'm forgetting the word for, like, what a dog's hind leg is called, where, like, the knee sort of goes the opposite way that a human knee does. So I like them to be able to be standing, be tall, have a wolf head, a bit of just sort of a monstrous, distorted, bipedal, human-esque body. That's sort of what I like from my design. I want them to be very big and dangerous, like, as far as monsters go. I want them really monstrous. Not just a dog or a big dog. Not just a man with claws. I want them, like, really monstrous, personally. If I remember Werewolf by Night, it was a non-event. I got hoping it would be like Tomb of Dracula, but I was sorely let down. I am interested to hear your story. Maybe name him Marv Wolfman. Well, mine doesn't, like, exactly focus on the werewolves. Just, it's a world where there are werewolves, just to be clear. But, yeah. Well, I mean, like, don't worry. They are characters. It's just that they're not the most important characters in the story. Kind of like something like the aliens aren't, like, the most important characters in an Aliens movie, right? Anyway, I don't want to give anything away. Moore did a cool werewolf story tied with female cycles and Swamp Thing. I remember that. Like, Swamp Thing is underrated in terms of being, like, a horror book. And I only say underrated now. Like, it probably wasn't for a long, long time. But I think that, like, people have slowly sort of started to forget some of Alan Moore's work, including Swamp Thing. Because, there's always just new readers. And some of them are younger, and they just haven't grown up in a world where Alan Moore is, like, the man. He always will be to me, though. A lot of different types of genres and nailed all of them. A true crime noir story where werewolves are constantly running around in the background, never acknowledged in any way. Yeah. Do you think Ghost Rider can be scary or just have horror aesthetics? Can Ghost Rider be scary? I've never really thought of Ghost Rider as a scary character per se, although he exists in a horrific world that, like, has almost literally the devil. I mean, these days, Mephisto. And, his enemies are all sort of freaks. But, he is still in a superhero world. And they don't really play up, say, the body horror of, like, burning or melting or anything. Like, none of the books really play that up too much. So I've never really quite thought of him as full-blown horror, more like horror adjacent, if that makes sense. That's my 2 cents on Ghost Rider. Did I miss you talking about Orphan and the Five Beasts? Hey, it's Matt Draper. If for any reason any of you guys watching this show don't know, Matt Draper has a really good YouTube channel under that name, and he also does comic book analysis. The one thing I admire a lot about Matt, some of the absolute best editing you can get when it comes to comic book reviews. I don't know how you have the time to do it, Matt, because I just amazing editing. Like, trust me, you will be visually interested while he does his analysis, which isn't to downplay anything else. But to answer your question, Matt, yes, I did give a quick review of the latest issue of Orphan and the Five Beasts, and I would say that and Newburn were my favorite comics of this past week. And I just really admire how James Stokoe does pretty much everything himself. It's a singular vision, and yeah, you just don't get that too much in American comics, actually, like a singular vision. You might get it for like certain full graphic novels, but mostly it is a process of collaboration, which I also respect and like. But yeah, it's just really cool to be seeing someone do something on their own, and so I'm fine with that book taking a little longer than a month to put out a new issue. I'm totally fine with that. Hey, it's my sister. Hey, Jean, thanks for taking some time. She's all the way on the East Coast, so it's a little later there. I need to review US1. You know, I've thought about it before, Joe, and I would never say no, because it is pretty funny. That said, I did once consider reviewing it, and when I looked at it, I was like, you know what? This isn't necessarily bad funny. This is tongue-in-cheek funny. I think the creators definitely knew they had a pretty wacky idea there. I'm trying to remember, like, some of his villains. Like, one of them is, like, you know, like a German guy that rides around in a blimp. And I'm like, there's just no way these guys are creating a bad book intentionally. Like, they're creating a sort of intentionally goofy book. US1, if you guys don't know, is about a truck driver. This is during the time in the 70s when CB radios were a bit of a craze. And Ulysses something or other, like, you know, something that, like, stands for, like, US1. Ulysses is a truck driver. He's in a terrible truck accident. And a scientist puts him back together, not quite the Bionic Man. Instead, he just has a metal head plate that allows him to hear radio signals. That's his superpower, is that he can, instead of like doing this with a CB radio, hey, come on in, he can just go, hey, come on in. So, I don't know exactly how much of a power that really is, but I think they knew what they were doing. And so it gets harder. Like, for instance, if you are going to, like, make fun of, I'll make an analogy. If you're going to make fun of bad movies, right? There's stuff like Troll 2 or The Room or stuff by guys like, who am I thinking of? Neil Breen. Or any of the stuff that the guys on Red Letter Media find, where it's bad, but you can tell that they, like, some of the people did not intend it to be bad. They intended to give it their all, and they just made some really bad mistakes, a lot of compounded mistakes, to get to a bad story. Whereas, if you look at a movie like Sharknado, right? Well, it is bad, and some of that is, like, you know, because of bad acting, but they're also trying to be ridiculous. So it's sort of like, it's not as much fun to make fun of stuff that's, like, you know, going for a laugh, right? Like, it's not like they don't know what they've made. So when I review something that I think is a little crummy, which isn't often, but obviously I do it sometimes, like this past week, it's more because either I know the creators can do better, or it's bad and we can learn something from it. Like, you know, somebody just, like, really put together a bad product, but didn't intentionally, like, try to do it. Whereas if they are doing something just to, like, have fun, it's harder to make the jokes about it, because you're like, it almost acts like you're not in on the joke. If that makes sense. So that's my analogy for the day. Thanks for joining me for Analogy Stream. US one wasn't made in the 70s. That's true. That's true. He was made later, wasn't he? He was made after the fad. That much is true. Like the fad had largely died out of CB radios, but sometimes that's Marvel's way. Like they weren't always on top of like the fads of the day. No, they still aren't always. Bad movies on purpose are super common now. It's lame. Yeah, like something that's sort of like bad on purpose. I'll just say it's more like campy, right? And the 60s Batman show. That was campy. That wouldn't be the easiest thing to make fun of. I look back and I think the 60s Batman show is legit funny and entertaining. It's pretty good action, the fight scenes. Yeah, it's choreographed and staged, but I'm still engaged on the level that it all takes place in. I buy into the reality because everybody's playing the same. You know, like they're all acting on the same sort of heightened level. The camera work is consistent. The sets are a certain bright look. Everything's consistent in tone. So it's not like if I made fun of it, it's not like they were like, oh, we were trying to do like a dark, serious, gritty Batman. No, that's not what they were going for. So if I start making fun of that, it's like I missed their joke. So it's very tricky sometimes to decide, like, you know, when to play jokes. Yeah, the 60s Batman is fun. I've been reading The Walking Dead Deluxe, and in the letters page, a guy asks Robert Kirkman if he was Chris Pierce writing in Invincible in The Walking Dead and thought it was Kirkman. Was it you? I don't quite understand the question the way you've worded it there, Robert, but to answer your question, like if they're still reprinting the original letters from Walking Dead and Invincible, yeah, I wrote into those books a lot in the early days. I was proofreading them, and I was still like reading them as a fan. And yeah, so like Robert printed a lot of my letters, probably all of my letters, to be honest. And that was nice of him. We were just having fun, like communicating in that format. And then also, I had some art printed in both of them, just pinups. Well, no, I don't think I had art printed in Walking Dead. I don't think I ever did fan art for that, but I did have art printed in Invincible a couple times. And I named the letters page for The Walking Dead. Issue like 2, I think it was, if you go back, which I guess nowadays it's probably not the easiest book to find, but like issue 2, I say like, I think you should call your letters page Letter Hacks. If you don't know, like back in the day, people used to like sometimes write letters regularly to comic books. There used to be some regulars that you would see if you cracked open Marvel or DC books in the 70s and 80s. You'd see the same names appear a lot. And the term for them was letter hacks. I don't really know exactly where it came from. But, you know, hack away at zombies, letter hacks. That was what I suggested. And he used it, and he credited me. Have I ever heard of the YouTube channel Panels to Pixels? He did a video defending Rob Liefeld's art, saying that Rob is the Kurt Cobain of comics. I have heard of the Panels to Pixels channel. I have not watched... I don't think I've watched any of it, to be honest. I intentionally try not to watch most YouTube channels, to be honest, unless I've already covered the same thing. That way, and I don't plan on doing that video again, that means now my opinion can't be influenced. So now I can safely like watch that thing. So I have watched some. There's pretty much nobody out there that has a YouTube channel that I've watched. Like, no, there's none of them that I've watched everything. But yeah, I respect what Panels to Pixels does, and I even respect that argument. I think sometimes like maybe my videos about Liefeld have come off as possibly too harsh. I don't think he's a fantastic artist, but I'd be lying if I said that I didn't love it when I was a younger teenager. Like, there's something very energetic about Liefeld's work, and it definitely caught my eye. Today, I don't think he's like taken any real steps at trying to improve his artwork. He's sort of just stayed the same. It's a bit stagnant in my opinion. I think a lot of his contemporaries have at least tried different things. You know, Todd McFarlane got really into inking, and went in some directions there. Jim Lee at least tried things like Deathblow, working in a different art style than what he's known for. It didn't all resonate with fans, but they were trying different things, I think. I think a lot of artists still try different things, and I don't feel like Liefeld has tried different things, so I sort of fault him a little bit for that. But look, as a marketing guy, like, you gotta respect the hustle. Like, even, like, it's been so long since Liefeld was the hot guy, you know, like 1992 or 1991, when he was like the it guy in comics. That was a long time ago now. But if a new Liefeld book is coming out, you definitely hear about it, I think, still across social media and on any comic-related news sources. They all talk about it. Because the fact is, he'll still move some issues. So there's a fan base there, and I respect that, too. You know, I respect that he's engaged and kept some of that fan base for so long. Not every artist does that. John Byrne, who I just was talking about from the X-Men, I loved his work, and he used to be like the guy in comics. And, you know, if a book was announced today with John Byrne working on it, I think it would sell, but I don't think it would get the same hype that for some reason a Liefeld book does. I don't know exactly why that is either. I couldn't put my finger on exactly why Rob Liefeld still engages the community that way, but he does. Maybe there's something attainable about the way he approaches things. I don't know. Like, maybe it's not too aspirational to draw like Liefeld, but that's just a quick, idle speculation. I don't have an easy answer. So I respect him in some levels. And obviously my criticisms are, I think he still has the same flaws that he always has. He hasn't really taken a lot of steps to improve. But you could argue, well, does he need to? Apparently he doesn't. I just respect artists that try to still stretch and grow. I just always will respect that. Even if it doesn't connect, even with me specifically, I still respect when artists try to grow. I think Will Eisner, until his last days, was still trying to do that. Joe Kubert. These were guys that were putting out, you know, very intimate graphic novels in their later years, with a lot of attention to how they did the art. And I'm not saying that the detail improved in every case, but I think the storytelling sometimes did. So, yeah. Do you think Hulk is a superhero or an anti-hero? He can be either, depending on the writer. He sincerely can be either. He works well as both. I think that, like, playing up the monster aspect makes him a little more unique. So I tend to like the stories where Hulk is a bit more of a monster as compared to, say, just like a core member of the Avengers or something like that. But he can work either way. There's still some humanity in Hulk. I don't think that Hulk should be made an outright villain. You should always be at least somewhat sympathetic to his plight somehow, no matter how you approach that. But I also sort of feel that way about Namor, and I think Namor is treated a bit more like a villain than Hulk. Bone Orchard Mythos by Jeff Lemire and Andrea Sorrentino is a horror universe. Bone Orchard Mythos. Okay, well, I respect Jeff Lemire's work, but I'm not familiar with Andrea Sorrentino. I'll try to keep that in the back of my mind. Have you read Grant Morrison's Klaus books? Been thinking of picking them up? No, I haven't. I did flip through it once at a Barnes & Nobles recently, and it did look like it had some great artwork. Wasn't... Oh, some of it was by... I'm blanking on names. Sean... It's eluding me right now, guys. I'm bad at names. I've always been bad at names. I have to look stuff up and write it down, like when I do my reviews, because I'm just bad at names. Yeah, Klaus did seem to have some really good art, and I'm always down for trying whatever Grant does, so at some point I'd probably read it, just to be clear. Dan Mora did the art. Sorry, that is who I was thinking of. I don't know why I said Sean. Yeah, and obviously Dan Mora is like getting bigger and bigger. As soon as like, you know, he ends up on something like, you know, Batman or X-Men or Spider-Man, like everyone's gonna know and love him. But he's already like really big, working on stuff like, you know, Power Rangers and Klaus. How have your Japanese skills progressed recently? Badly. I appreciate the question, Daniel. Once you're an adult, it becomes a little harder to learn new things, and languages are definitely among the trickier ones. What I need to do, my next step in my journey to learning Japanese, is I need immersion, as in a class. I do. I've been just doing the self-guided stuff on Duolingo for like 2 years, a year and a half, something like that. And it's just not progressing as fast as it should, and I need to be challenged more. So I need a teacher, and I need immersion. That's what I need. I watch a bunch of like YouTube channels from people that live in Japan, because I really like it there. I don't think it's exactly a weeb thing, because I'm not really a huge fan of like anime or anything. I do read some manga, of course, but I like comics in general. I've just visited like, you know, 4 times, and I really like it there a lot. I like the food, and I like their sense of design, and I don't know, I've just always had a really good experience on a lot of different levels. I generally like the climate and the weather. So I watch a bunch of YouTube channels by like, you know, Americans, Canadians, Australians, and British people, you know, like English speakers that live there, and I do get tempted to move there. I've been hearing some encouraging things lately, that they think that Japan might be close to opening its borders for travelers, without like a full 14-day quarantine, that they may start accepting proof of vaccination, and you probably still have to take a test as well before and after. But if you've got your vaccination card, you know, they feel like, you know, in 3 months or so that Japan may start accepting that. Currently, they really don't. You have to do a full 14-day quarantine at your own expense. Who has the time and money for that unless you live there? So challenging. I really want to go back. Iceland is my spirit country. I'd like to visit Iceland sometime. My friend Jeff has been there 3 times, and I like it. I like the idea of going there. Would you consider doing a video on Devilman? It's a massive influence on Japanese pop culture and would be a great video. Yeah, I would definitely consider that. I've read the original Devilman by Go Nagai, and I do see how influential it became. You know, he's really part of that second wave of influential manga creators, and yeah, he created something important there. So I would definitely consider that at some point being a topic. He's an important creator. Go Nagai is. The closest I've come so far is, if you want to watch my video with where I interview Zach Davison, who translates a bunch of manga for America, including Devilman. We talk a little bit about his work and what makes him unique. Obviously, Zach has some really good insight there. That's the closest I've come to that. But yeah, at some point I'll definitely do an episode, I think, about him. I mean, at some point I definitely have to. These are cool questions. I read the first 133 issues of Ultimate Spider-Man and loved it. Bagley art was great. It sucked that he left in the 80s. Left? I don't quite get it. I mean, he's still working and on a lot of Spider-Man stuff still. Like, you know, for instance, what I talked about a little while ago, the Spider-Man life story. He did that. Like, Is Mark Bagley still around? Quick question: would you ever cover Kick-Ass by Mark Millar and John Romita Jr.? Quite possibly. I'm a big fan of John Romita Jr. And I think that that was some of his best work, that first miniseries. I really do. I think he did a great job. Did I say best work? I don't know. If that might be overstating it, because now that I'm thinking of it, he's done a lot of really impressive stuff over the years. But he did a good job on that. He did a great job on it, just to be clear. And as far as Mark Millar goes, I'm not always a huge fan of how edgelord some of that is, but I think that the first Kick-Ass is better than most. I think the only thing is it tried to position itself as hey, what if superheroes were in the real world? And then a few issues in, you've got Hit Girl being a ninja like Wolverine, which just completely destroys any level of reality, but whatever. Berserk took heavy plot elements from Devilman and Go Nagai. I agree. Having read both, I think that there's an influence there. I think a lot of the monster designs owe a bit to Go Nagai's sense of design. So I would agree with that. Miller is definitely an edgelord. I think so, right? I don't know. Maybe some people would disagree with me, but I think he tries a little too hard to be edgy with his stuff, and I think he definitely relies on Nazis too much. I'm trying to think. It feels like Nazis show up way too often in his stuff. There are other bad guys that are easy to hate. I'm not trying to defend Nazis. I'm saying that they're just overused in some of his stuff. Yeah, I acknowledge the edginess issues. Well, I mean, I reviewed his, Old Man Logan, and just that was sort of my main critique, was I just felt like it was trying too hard to be edgy. There's some good ideas to be mined from that, but I think that, personally, Mark Millar has benefited from Hollywood improving on his ideas, because I would argue that Logan was a better version of Old Man Logan. I would say that the first Kingsman movie was better than Kingsman. I think that Wanted was, maybe that was equal to Wanted, the comic, maybe better, arguably. Most of the time, I think Kick-Ass was, a more entertaining movie than the comic in some regards. No, maybe that's about equal too. But I think he's benefited. I think he's benefited from his stuff being adapted well. I'll say that. I think he's benefited from stuff being adapted well. I've been a fan of Simon Spurrier lately. Are you a fan? I don't think I've read much by Simon Spurrier. I'd have to think about that. I don't know what Top Chat is. Black Phoenix says I'm in Top Chat, but I really don't know what Top Chat is. Sorry. I don't know if that's an app or a hashtag or what. I'm sorry. Yeah, I know Ennis can sort of get there too, but I generally like Ennis a lot more. I think that the only thing about Ennis is that he has some disdain for the idea of superheroes. Whereas some of his fellow British writers like Grant Morrison and Alan Moore clearly sort of love superheroes and what you can do with them. I think that Ennis, he can get edgy and stuff, and maybe he tries too hard here and there, but I think he's generally a pretty solid storyteller. I like a lot of Ennis stuff. Speaking of Old Man Logan, I just got the ML 2-packs of Hawkeye and Old Man Logo. Amazing figures, and Hawkeye doubles as Whistler from Blade. Those must be action figures, I guess you're talking about? That sounds cool. Paul Smith would make a good video. Yeah, he would. He is overlooked in terms of how good he was and how much he helped X-Men at the time. So I totally agree with you. I'd love to give him his due. There's a lot of creators out there that get overlooked, and I don't want them to be forgotten. So if I can help anybody find or look into some of those back issues, I would love to help with guys like that. So yeah. Garth Ennis Punisher Max is amazing, but a lot of people know that already. Yeah, I think he did generally a really solid job, especially on his Punisher Max. That artwork when he had, is it Goran Parlov? Oh man, that guy was great on Punisher. As far as sort of more recent Punisher artists, I thought he was top tier. Really fit the book well. Really, really well. I'm talking about the chat here on YouTube. You can switch between top chat and live chat. Oh. Thank you. There. Okay, I've switched over to live chat in case I've been missing people because of how I had it set up. Sorry about that. Didn't understand what that was. Still learning. Even though I've been doing this YouTube thing for a while now, still learning. What else? Ever consider a video on Ramona Fraden? I really have. Absolutely. Really respect Ramona. I've mentioned her a bunch in my social media when I can, because I definitely respect Ramona. I mean, I think she's in her 90s. I think later 90s. And she's still working, folks. She's still doing stuff. She still does commissions, first of all. Lots of them, and she will do the occasional cover or something. She just did one for Wonder Woman. She did one, I want to say, for Metamorpho's anniversary this year, because she's the co-creator of Metamorpho. I think she did one for Aquaman because it was Aquaman's 80th anniversary. I think she did a cover for him. What an amazing lady. And she seems to legit just love comics and drawing, because she's still doing it. When you get to be that age, you shouldn't have to draw if you don't want to, right? No one's usually putting a gun to a 90-something-year-old's head and saying keep drawing or else. You do it because you love it, and she must love it. She must. And that passion is wonderful. We're so lucky to still have her. Yeah, she did an Aquaman cover. Hey, Chrissy's here. Don't forget to draw AntMan too. Okay, Chrissy wants me to draw a screen-accurate AntMan, so here we go. I'm going to need a smaller pen for this. I hope you guys appreciate this. We're going to do a quick AntMan. What do you think, folks? Hey, I'm Ant-Man. And I don't know if we can even focus on it, but I actually did give him some details. Yeah, I can't even focus on it. That's Ant-Man. And for size comparison, here's a full-size Ant-Man. Well, his boot anyway. That's the tip of his boot. We'd sort of do some shading, right? Like blah blah blah. That's shiny, and then this is all dark. And that's Ant-Man. Nailed it. Back to this really silly werewolf. Perfect Ant-Man. Very quiet over there, says Gene. Am I being too quiet? What am I supposed to do? Sing? I can't sing. I could do perfect vocal impressions. If there's any famous actors or characters that you want to hear tonight, I guess I'd be happy to provide that for all of you for a moment or two. So feel free to give me your favorite actor or character, and if you want, I'll nail it perfectly. My sister says I'm being too quiet, so... Have any tips on cross-hatching? Well, I'm still like trying to get better at it. I would cross-hatching. Actually, make sure that it's crossing at a consistent angle, and make sure that it's where you want it to not just be completely blacked out. That you want to show the vaguest bit of texture. I have not read Rurouni Kenshin. People want Christopher Walken. Okay. Sometimes you gotta draw Ant-Man. That's all there is to it, kid. Cary Grant. Frankly, my dear, I'm going to draw a fantastic werewolf tonight. I'm Cary Grant. Perfect! How did I do it? I don't know. Joe Pesci. Oh, damn, that's actually a tough one. Hey, where's my pens? They take your pens and they don't give them to them. What's the matter with all these? Perfect Joe Pesci. I'll just stop there. I know I nailed it. Oh, Robin Williams. Oh, hey, oh, eh. I made myself laugh with that sound. Sorry. Oh, hello, oh. Keanu Reeves. Okay. I'm gonna do a perfect Keanu Reeves. Hi there, I'm Keanu Reeves. Wait, maybe I can do better. Whoa. I think I got it. Batman. Batman. I don't wear hockey pads. Josh Brolin Thanos. Perfectly balanced, as all things must be. It even got sound effects of some sort of beep bop boop alien in the background. Hey, Sylvester Stallone here. I think you should get yourself a VPN, hey, get a VPN. Alright, Stan Lee. Face front, true believers, it is the amazing Werewolf Man, who has the powers of a wolf, but is also a man. I think I did it. I think I nailed every single one perfectly. Obviously, highlights were that Joe Pesci voice. Just right out of the park. Right out of the park. Adam West as Robert De Niro in Scent of a Woman. Hoo-ah. Hoo-ah. Oh yeah, I was doing Clark Gable, wasn't I? I was doing Clark Gable, not Cary Grant. Sorry, I was doing Clark Gable, actually. I really was. That's actually funny. I just realized that I didn't... I was thinking of Clark Gable when somebody said Cary Grant, and Mr. Howell called me on it. Says, that's a brilliant Clark Gable imitating Cary Grant. That's exactly what I was accidentally doing. Thank you. That's kind of funny to me. I'm amused that somehow came through. That was a great Stan Lee. Oh, I imagine it's an honor to speak to me. Yes, I imagine it is. I'm glad I got to interview Stan once before he passed, before his last couple of years with dementia. Some people have it out for Stan, and I just say, you know what, maybe he did take too much credit, but I don't feel like, Jack Kirby ever, sort of came after him saying, no, he had nothing to do with Fantastic Four, he didn't have anything to do with X-Men, and he could have in his later years. So I feel like, he did something. He didn't do nothing. He worked on a lot of stuff, and he hyped it up. He was a hype man for comics. So I respect him in a lot of levels. And I'm glad I got to interview him. It was nice. Jeff Goldblum. Okay. Haha. Yes. Well. Yes. Oh. Yes. Did I do it or did I do it? Yeah, so I think I nailed all of them. I'm gonna stop with the impressions right now because I want to quit while I'm ahead. I think I did them all perfectly. Literally, I don't think any studio would have notes. They'd just be like, "Thank you." So why mess with perfection? Why tempt fate? I'll just leave it at that. Gene, I hope I added enough noise or sound since it was too quiet for you. I imagine I did. I can't imagine I did anything bad tonight. Stan Lee, somebody saying he had dementia. I think he definitely did, at least in his last year, maybe last two or something. It's a sad state of affairs, to go down this hole, but if you look in his last few years, he was going through elder abuse. The people around him were stealing from him, forcing him to go to conventions and give signatures and stuff, and he clearly doesn't completely know what's going on. It's really depressing. He had a lot of money stolen from him in his last few years. Lots of people accusing each other of doing that. I think that almost everyone around him. Once he lost his wife, things went downhill pretty bad, and his daughter really wasn't a great person, didn't really look out for him, just sort of also was trying to get access to his stuff. Oh, it's a sad state of affairs. Apparently, he tried to take care of his daughter, financially and stuff. He was always in touch with her, but they I guess really had it yelled at each other a lot, really contentious relationship. She was always arguing that he didn't do enough to support her, is what a lot of people say. I think that that Stan's wife Joan sort of played peacemaker while she was around, and once she wasn't, things got pretty bad between them. It's so sad. It's so sad. Yeah. Have you ever read any webtoons? I've gone to it once or twice. I just haven't found a book that engaged me, but I do like that they're telling comics in a different format, vertical. I like that. I would like to find one that I was into so that I could do a deep dive and analyze that on a deeper level. So yeah. Thanks again, everybody, for joining tonight. This is really interesting questions, and I'm having a good time. Oh, there was comic book news that I could talk about. Two things I can think of. One, let's do the lighthearted one first. It was a Spider-Man movie poster that was officially released. Ooh, Spider-Man. Everybody likes Spider-Man. Most people like Spider-Man, I think. And it's cool because it definitely confirms, at least it confirms for sure that there will be two villains in it that come from previous movies, and it's strongly implied another two. Therefore, with four villains hinted at in the poster, everybody's trying to find references for an additional two, because people want the Sinister Six. You know, like, I think that we've all wanted that, like, for a long time now, to see that on live action screen, like, see the Sinister Six. That's Spider-Man's, you know, big enemy group. It's taken a bunch of variations. And there's certain ones that are, like, you know, like, most of the time they're in there, and then there's other ones that have, like, come and gone a couple times. But I don't, like, looking at it really closely, I don't see any clear hints for another two. That's Little Bean. He made a cameo. Thanks, Little Bean. If I make that sound, he comes. I don't know. Come here. Want to say hi? I'd love for you to say hi to people here. Yeah? You're going to come over? Come here. I'm going to get you. I'm not going to get him. He ran away. That's a cat for you. A dog will come. A cat will not always come. Wanted him to have a cameo. People like a cute animal, right? No? He's still there. He just doesn't want to be picked up by me, I guess. That's fair. If you don't want to be picked up, you don't got to be picked up, pal. So yeah, I think it's funny, like, if you look online, like, there are people, like, just massively speculating, going, like, oh, there's a reflection in this, and I think that means Mephisto is in this movie, or, you know, like, they just have all sorts of crazy theories, and I look at it, and I'm just like, I don't think so. I think that, like, you know, they wouldn't hide it, like, that deep. If they're gonna, like, put it in there, the studio, they're gonna put it in there, so... I think that there, you know, and there might be a Sinister Six. I'm not saying that there won't be, but I am saying I don't think that the poster implies any additional villains. It implies probably 4. And that's cool. Hopefully that works. A group of enemies at this point, I think, can work. They're not going to all get an equal amount of screen time, but that's okay. Who's your favorite Sinister Six member? Definitely Doc Ock. I think Doc Ock is Spider-Man's best villain. Green Goblin's fine, but I think Doc Ock is his best villain. Because he's a scientist like Peter, but one that, like, you know, perverted his gifts, you know? Became a criminal. Whereas Norman Osborn is more of an industrialist who's kind of crazy. And sort of started more as, like, a bank robber almost. I mean, a lot of the villains started as bank robbers, to be fair. So I won't, like, you know, take that away from Green Goblin. Like, a lot of them started as that. But, yeah, I just think that Doc Ock works the best. I think that he is presented as the overall smartest villain that Spider-Man goes up against. He's very powerful. I think that he just works really, really well. And in the comics... Doc Ock put together the Sinister Six. So, yeah. Traditionally, let me think. Like, the original Sinister Six was Doc Ock, Kraven the Hunter, Mysterio, Electro, Vulture. I'm forgetting the other one. I'm trying to think of the original team. Sandman. I didn't say Sandman. So that was the original 6. There have been other iterations that have mixed in, you know, Shocker, I think, has been in there. Scorpion has been in there. But those are really, like, later enemies. There was one kind of fun story that I think might have actually been written by Mark Miller, now that I think of it, where Norman Osborn put together a Sinister 12. That was kind of fun. Get some Zip on the Wolf as a shadow at his feet. Oh, that would be fun. That would take a long time to do right, but that's a cool idea, man. I like it. I'm going to just put this in complete black. I think this would be in shadow. And I don't care if you disagree. So anyway, that was one piece of news, was the Spider-Man movie poster, official movie poster. I'm looking forward to it. I like Spider-Man a lot. Like, as far as superhero characters go, just to be clear, Spider-Man is an all-time favorite of mine. Always has been. So the other piece of big comic book news this week was the employees at Image Comics, not the creators, none of the creators, the employees. And just to be clear, Image Comics does not have a big staff. It's something like 10 or 12 people or something. Have spoken with each other, held a vote, and have formed a union. The Comic Book Workers, I think it's Comic Book Workers United is what it's called, CBWU, I think. And I'll be honest, I don't have like a clear take on it yet because I'm still not 100% clear on what their specific goals are as a union. I think that a union for freelancers to join could be powerful because it would probably at the least, result in like, a union strong enough for them to like buy into, say, like medical insurance, get some health insurance instead of having to buy a private plan, usually like a group plan that a group can buy. They can sell to their members at a lower cost because it sort of evens out some of the risk as compared to just an individual plan. That would be a great thing for comic book creators to have access to. That would be. I'm not 100% sure what kind of bargaining power that would like necessarily give them. So I'm just not clear on exactly what the employees at Image are looking for in terms of that bargaining power, but I'm not like crapping on it yet. I just don't have, like, there was an interview on, I want to say IO9 recently with them, and I still didn't get much in terms of clarification on what they want. I mean, I get that they just want better working conditions in general. They have a good argument at one point in it. They say, look, if you get a job in, sort of a fan field where it's like really competitive, there's a lot of desirability to work in things like video games, movies, comic books, an entertainment field. There's a lot of desirability. And therefore, a lot of the fans will say, like, well, you should just be grateful to be there, like that. And that can be a pretty common viewpoint among some fans. Like, well, I would do it for like, less pay just to be able to do that. But that's a flawed argument. Like, everybody deserves to be paid fairly for their work once they're there. As long as they're performing, they deserve to be taken care of. So I get that that's a piece of it. I just don't understand why they felt that they needed a union to do that as compared to like, some collective bargaining directly with management. I don't understand that yet. Like, I would like them to explain that a little bit. Anyway, so that was the big news. But as to where it's going or the exact reasons behind it, I still don't know. I would like to know. If Naoki Urasawa decided to do an American comic, what book would you like to see him do? He does well with epic stories and like really good at like building unique characters with like a lot of people around them in a fleshed out world with a big goal. I think he'd probably be able to give us a really dynamic Batman story. I think that would probably be the character that would be best suited for him. If not, then possibly some sort of a sci-fi character. Maybe even somebody like wild, like Silver Surfer. So I think that like Batman, Silver Surfer, maybe Spider-Man could all be things I bet Naoki Urasawa could tell a really great story for. Daniel Carhoonen. And by the way, I'll just give Daniel a quick plug here. He writes some comics, and I lettered one for him that came out the beginning of this year. All of a sudden, I'm blanking on its name, Daniel. It's a really fun story about a world of transforming robots who've lost their ability to transform, so they hire a detective transformer to figure out the mystery of why they can't transform anymore. I'm completely. I told you guys I'm bad at names. I just am. For some reason, names are bad. Daniel, please feel free to plug your book. It's available through Marcosia Publishing, and I took on the job lettering it because I sincerely thought it was good. I think the art is good. I think the story is exciting and funny and unique. All of a sudden, I'm blanking on the name, which is bad for me, but whatever. But he asks, have you ever read Action Force, the G.I. Joe comics from Marvel UK? I think I've read all of them. And it's an interesting take on the material. Yeah. I did do one episode where I reviewed one a little bit more than the others. It was an episode about G.I. Joe, about like sort of rare or harder to find G.I. Joe comics. And it was about like Quick Kick, who never really got explored too much by Larry Hama in the American ones. I don't think it was a character that Larry Hama felt a huge connection with. But in the British comics, there's a cool backup story written by Grant Morrison, just so you know, where Quick Kick talks about like the best martial artists in the world. And he mentions specifically Iron Fist and Shang-Chi. So I thought that was interesting, like, because the Marvel comics are definitely not in 616 Marvel superhero continuity, but the Action Force ones somehow were within the Marvel UK continuity, at least loosely. So that one. Lauxor, thank you. Lauxor, folks. It's a book that I lettered, so if you're curious, like, I think it's good. I think it's fun. You can find it on the Marcosia Publishing website. Lauxor, please. Have I read Peach Momoko's X-Men Demon Days? Yeah, Deshef. I interviewed one of the writers on it. What do you call it? Zach Davison. To get his take on the process that he goes through writing that with Peach. It's a really fun book. I like it a lot. It's a cool remix of ideas. So yes, please consider watching that video that I did where I interview him, because he's the co-writer of it. Not just a translator, he's the co-writer. And anyway, yeah, I like it. I think it's a really fun book, and I think one of my favorite things that I've seen from Peach, actually. Man, Peach has really benefited from this new-ish sort of trend of like comics making variant covers and store exclusive covers, huh? I respect the hell out of it. Anything that like brings in readers, even if that's their thing, is like the more collectability aspect of it, fine. That's okay. I know you love TMNT, I do. Would you give the wolf a colored bandana eye mask? Turtle green would look ace and would pop against the presumable brown color, and green is a good villain color. That would look cool, but it's too late in the process for me to add that now. You'll have to imagine it. Unless I went in Photoshop, of course. Well, now G.I. Joe Classified and Marvel Legends are made by Hasbro. Scale perfectly, so canon. Yeah, if the figures are the same size, it's canon. Thanks for the plug. No, please, Daniel, you made a really great comic. I hope more people check it out. Like, it deserves to be seen. I am sincerely, like, proud to have worked on it. I hope you continue to do more. That was a really fun, unique sort of job. And thank you. You were super professional about the whole thing. You didn't like ask for like random favors. You had everything like laid out. You worked really hard on that. I know that for a fact. I know how hard it is. I've worked every end of comics, like writing and production, and printing and coloring and lettering and writing and drawing. I know it's not easy, and so just kudos. I noticed a lot of Japanese artists posting their comic heroes artwork on Twitter. Oh, that's fun. Have I read Radiant Black? I flipped through it. It definitely looked cool. Just sort of aimed a little maybe younger than what I connect with. You know, definitely looks like an interesting superhero book, tinged with sort of a Power Rangers background. Good ideas. They deserve to be explored, no question. Just didn't quite hook me, but maybe that was my mistake. I'm always looking for recommendations. I really am. I rely on recommendations, and sometimes I miss it when it's brand new, and I pick it up in trade, or honestly, I get a lot of my stuff digitally, just to be clear. That makes it easier for me to potentially get images for a review, for review purposes, than like having to scan the original stuff myself, which is a total pain. There's a machine out there though that I am thinking of putting on like my Christmas list. It's a little pricey, but it's pretty cool. It's like it's a bar that goes like over the artwork, almost like this camera up here, like just but like a bar. You flip a page, you step on a pedal that's down below, and it like snaps a shot, and it says that it's like a quick scan, and it will even like remove the curve of pages. And it was like originally the technology was more created for people like say in law school or something that have to like reference a bunch of precedent for a case, things like that, but that like artists could also like use it to like, you know, take pictures of images, especially for review purposes. That could help me because I have to usually like, you know, like get quite a few images that I'm then just sort of like cropping and using just the necessary components to make my arguments. And I forget what it's called, but it's a piece of technology that interests me. What's my favorite out of context comic panels? Oh, that's so fun to ask. You know, just for the record, like I'm sure I wasn't the first one to do this, but like going back like I don't know, 9 years or something like that, I used to write for a blog. Like daily, and one of my recurring segments was out of context comics, and I would just like hunt all sorts of old issues or articles and stuff, looking for stuff that like was funny out of context. And I gotta say, one of my all-time favorites is a cover of Archie comics where Archie is carrying away Betty on a beach, and like there's some angry guys behind, and she's like wow, like, thanks, Archie. And he's like, it was tough, Betty. I had to beat off all those guys to get you. And I just like that. I'm a simple guy. So I like that one a lot. Yeah, I know Kyle Starks. Kyle Starks, didn't he do a bunch of, well, if it's the guy I'm thinking, didn't he do a great Plastic Man series at DC back in the day? Steve says, I gotta be honest, as I grow older, I prefer to collect my comics in trade paperbacks for the most part, rather than single issues. Anyone else feel the same way? I sort of do too, Steve. I like to read a story a little more complete. It's also part of why I've gravitated a little bit more and more towards certain manga, just because it's easy to pick up Tankobon once it's become popular and, like, you know, read it that way. I like to read a bunch of story all at once and really sort of like fall into that world and get invested. So I do quite like that format. I don't know if it's financially viable for everybody, but I do appreciate that, like Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips, their current series Reckless, they release like every 4 to 5 months as a complete graphic novel. And it's a nice big story that would otherwise probably be like 6 issues or something. It's a really satisfying way to read a comic. I'm glad that they can take the time and release it that way and sort of recoup those costs, as compared to, I think, a lot of artists rely on monthly income, can't necessarily wait that 5 or 6 months. Blood on the Tracks. I haven't heard of that one. Okay, thanks for the recommendation. Saga and indie stuff, but still prefer trades. Yeah, I get that. Almost missed your show. No, I'll probably be here for a little bit longer, Tari. Thanks for jumping in. I'm more of a hardcover and omnibus guy now than trade paperback. Totally understand. The only reason I'm not always an omnibus guy is it's rare for like these days the same creative team to have such an extended run that warrants an omnibus. Obviously, they do come out. I like a consistent creative team because I usually feel like they're not just sitting there biding time. Most of the time, it's because they have a pretty big vision and they've mostly been left alone to see that one through. So those are the comics that I tend to like most within superheroes. For example, Rick Remender's Uncanny X-Force was largely untouched by crossovers, even though it had, Deadpool and Wolverine. It was its own self-contained thing. Immortal Hulk, again, the main title did not have to cross over with, your Civil Wars and stuff like that. I think that they did a couple sort of like one-shots instead that were like, yeah, here's Immortal Hulk, fighting Null and the symbiotes. But you can just read the Immortal Hulk book and it's one complete story. And I really, really like that. Now, sometimes a character can cross over into it for an issue or two. I want to see the Thing show up in a Hulk comic, but I don't necessarily want the ongoing narrative to get sidetracked with crossover stuff. I mean, yeah, sometimes crossovers are fun, but sometimes they're just annoying. I haven't tried Kaiju Max, but you know what? I do have it now that you say that, Andrew. Last time I went to New York Comic Con, which was not this year, so it was 2 years ago, before the pandemic. I was just walking through the con. I was walking by the Oni booth, and Jim Zub was there signing some stuff. He had been writing their Dungeons and Dragons Rick and Morty comic, which is a really funny comic, by the way. And he stopped me and was like, here, please take my comic. And then like one of the guys that worked for Oni, I really wish I knew his name, but I'm bad at names, guys, was like, oh, I know you too, Chris. Like, please take a couple of comics that I'm going to recommend to you. And one of them was Kaiju Max, and I just haven't read that one yet. But I do have it, and I have heard good things. I like Xander Cannon, so yeah. I read Dark Horse's Resident Alien back when it first came out. Like I read that first issue, and I think that's the one that's now a TV show, right? With Alan Tudyk. I should pull that back out and reread that. I didn't read the whole thing, but I read that first issue and I liked the premise. Alien living among us, working as a doctor. I liked it. I like fish out of water stories. I like stories where like someone is trying to be, more human. Sort of the Pinocchio story, but you get that like with characters like Spock and Data as well. I like that stuff. I like it a lot. I think some writers read better in trades. Grant Morrison and Jonathan Hickman. I do think that that's becoming more and more true, to be honest. Which is possibly going to hurt, certain monthly sales more than it needs to. But that's also just the way some people like really write. They write for the trade. And I'm not saying that's good or bad. Well, I guess I am a little bit saying that potentially that's bad. I tend to read it as the trade, so that's why I kind of like it. But like it might hurt the short-term sales a little bit. That is a possibility. I don't know for sure. I don't know if anyone's ever done any real A/B testing, like hardcore market research on that. If I was Marvel or DC or somebody like that, I would be testing the hell out of that. Like figure out like, is this helping or hurting my sales in the long term? Are crossovers helping or hurting? Obviously, short term, we can look at the numbers and go, cool. But do they, like, you got to do interviews with focus groups and find out, like, is this stuff that's long term potentially hurting? Obviously, that criticism has been there by all sorts of people, but you just don't know unless that you do the actual research. If you don't do the research, it's speculation one way or the other. And no one's going to like be able to just argue their case like, oh, I know for a fact, that Captain America would be selling better if he didn't have to cross over in, Let There Be Carnage. Like if they're going to make that argument online, No, you gotta do more than just show me the sales figures. You need to like literally talk to a focus group and show me comparable examples of when similar things were done and when similar things weren't done. It's a big project. You think I'd love Kaiju Max? Cool. Favorite Star Wars character? I would say Luke Skywalker. As a kid, it was definitely Luke. He seemed aspirational enough. You know, he had a sort of normal background. He grew to become a hero. It didn't hurt that, like, you know, to a degree enough, I felt like I looked more like Luke than any of the other characters. That didn't hurt. So as a kid, it was Luke. As I got older, it started to be Han Solo, because Han is just, you know, the funny one and the cool one. And I love Han. I love a lot of characters in Star Wars. But then as I got older, I started coming back to, like, no, I just like the purity of Luke, and I'm just a big fan of, you know, the classic hero myth arc. So yeah, it's come back to Luke. Although these days, I will say, damn, the Mandalorian, Din Djarin, he's become a character I can't wait. They got to give me a season 3. There, you can see him better here. I don't buy many action figures. I don't have any other Star Wars action figures, just to be clear. I don't. I've got just this one of Din Djarin. I like the Mando. And I'm looking forward to the Boba Fett season we get, but I want Mandalorian to come back. What if Captain America was Carnage? I'm not sure, but I think that they had a storyline like that where everyone in the Marvel Universe got possessed by Carnage symbiotes for a month. I think that happened. I'm pretty sure. Jeff Parker's Thunderbolts did really well with its crossovers. Then the team was sent through time so Parker could avoid all the crossovers. Oh, interesting. I like the pose on the wolf, and the shaded portions read very clearly. Nice work, mate. That's kind of you. Thank you. That's kind of you. I'm having fun. You know who can draw a good werewolf? Staz Johnson. British comic book artist. I like his work a lot. Staz can draw a dope werewolf. Look at his Twitter sometimes. Staz Johnson. If you go back in time, he did do stuff on, like, you know, G.I. Joe and Transformers when he was, like, cutting his teeth. But he's, like, worked on all sorts of stuff. He's worked on just tons and tons of stuff. He's probably written something that you read. If you don't know the name, like, you probably have read something by him, because he's been working for a long time, and he's good. He really is. He's underrated. Really clean, but also detailed visual style. Do you think Marvel should do their versions of What If for Star Wars comics? Yeah, probably. Sometimes that's how you get your best ideas, is just by saying, like, let's throw out some of the rules. You know? Let's throw out some of the rules and just see what we get here. I think that is probably a very good idea. Staz Johnson, I'll Google him. You even spelled it right, Joe. Yeah, I think a lot of people would like his work if you're not familiar. I sincerely think a lot of people would. He does a lot of commissions that he'll post on Twitter. So he'll do a good mix of, like, you know, superhero, but he seems to like doing, like, more you know, Indiana Jones action adventure type stuff, and like werewolves and stuff. I think he even has his own idea for, like, a werewolf book that he's just been, like, holding off on for some reason. I'm pretty sure he said that one time. Too bad. I'd hire him. Yeah, at some point, like, I'll have my script finished, and then it'll come time to hire an artist, and I hope I can get someone really good, because I want to get somebody better than what I can do. That's important to me, and I want to just focus on the writing and maybe some character design and stuff like that. I just want to focus on that. So we'll see. Maybe someday soon if I do it. Like, Hopefully I have the story at what I consider a finished point soon. Got it all mapped out, but having ideas and mapping them out is literally a dime a dozen. It like never impresses me when someone's like, I've got an idea for like a whole world of characters in this epic like 12 part story. I'm like, cool, like have you written it? And they're like, no, I need help with the writing. Like somebody else can write it. I've got all the ideas. I'm like, you've got literally nothing. If that's what, like, I believe you that you have the ideas, but if you haven't taken the time to write it down, you have literally nothing. Everybody has ideas, or everybody can have ideas. They're not anything until you actually take the time to map it out and write it down, like even a draft, because you're going to have to revise a draft. You're just going to have to. So, never find that impressive. People are like, I've got so many ideas. I'm like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all. What's the oldest trade paperbacks that you own currently? Not many, but, you know, an old trade paperback that I still own. See, I've sold most of my comics, like, 8 years ago, and I've just sort of got re-obtained them, like, just here or there in issue or digital, just so that I can reread it. So an older one might just be something like some of the original Marvel graphic novels. I've got, like, the Spider-Man story by Bernie Wrightson. That's probably like one of the older ones. And then I've got some stuff like, they're not even trade paperbacks. They're more like they were called like treasury editions. I've got things like, you know, Jack Kirby's 2001 adaptation, the Marvel DC first like team up crossover thing they did, which was Wizard of Oz adaptation, the Spider-Man Superman crossover. Yeah. Did you ever play any tabletop role-playing games? Absolutely. When I moved out here, I made some friends, and we all got into playing Dungeons and Dragons. I believe 5e is what we were playing. I'd never played it before, and I fell in love with it. Then the pandemic happened, and we sort of stopped. We tried doing it online for several weeks, but we sort of all eventually started falling off just because it was so much harder. So I've played that, and then I've played some other tabletop games that have light role playing in it. I'm gonna erase some of the pencil work. Oh, my sister says something about comics. Let's see. I saw my box of comic books in the attic when I was checking the damage. Oh, you still have those? Like your old Archie and Wonder Womans? That's awesome. My sister, I think did it mostly as an effort to connect with me, which I sincerely appreciate. She would pick up the occasional comic book when I did, if we went to, like, say, a comic book store or something like that. And it was primarily Archie and Wonder Woman, probably a few other things. And I mean, she read some of mine too, but like she had, she got, when we were reading together, she was reading the George Perez era Wonder Woman from issue 1, which is really good actually, like, because it uses a lot of the Greek mythology, like more than it had in the past, like really built up Ares as a really good villain. Have I read Lone Wolf and Cub? A little, and that's something I'd love to read more of, and at some point do a dedicated episode about it. Yeah. Super influential. There's a lot of Lone Wolf and Cub in Mandalorian. Not a one-for-one, but I definitely think they drew some inspiration from that. Down to the fact that, like, Grogu, Baby Yoda, is in a baby carriage, just like in Lone Wolf and Cub. Hard not to see the similarities there. Call of Cthulhu. I never played that one. What do you look for in an artist? The fundamentals, for sure. The ability to draw more than just, say, like, you know, a good pinup or a good person. I want to see them be able to handle, like, emotion and storytelling panel to panel. Like, you know, not just have all medium shots or, like, straight on shots, but, like, also not, like, going totally crazy with, like, breaking the panels for no good reason, or having like a weird panel layout that's more confusing than engaging. Like just having a good inherent like idea of when to break the rules and when to just abide by them, so that like when you break them it actually means something. And then the ability to draw like stuff that from real life that like isn't always fun. You know, the ability to draw a car or a building in proper perspective. I want to be able to know that these people can do 2 and 3 point perspective or more, hopefully. So, you know, if you can't do that and do like, yeah, then I have no interest. We'll see. It'll be a challenge. I would say it's the same stuff everybody looks for, though, you know? And then after that, like, you're going to look for sort of the shine, the polish. What makes this person unique, and do they do some stuff that's dynamic and engaging, and this, that, and the other. I was at work yesterday, and a customer came in with their dog. They were like, "Oh, my dog's in the car," and I was like, "You can bring your dog in here. Like, we allow dogs in this store." And it was a golden doodle, which is, I guess, what you'd call a manufactured breed. I loved that dog. Oh my God, she was so good. She just came up and sort of like stayed next to me during like almost the whole interaction, and I just got to pat her, and she was soft. She was so well behaved and sweet. Do you guys out there have like a favorite breed of dogs? If you like dogs, I would love to hear what your favorite breed is. At any point, will you do a video about Jamie Hewlett, the creator of Tank Girl? I'd love to. I would love to. I'm a big fan of gorillas too. But yeah, I've read Tank Girl stuff, and I like Tank Girl. I like Punk's sensibility, and Jamie Hewlett like draws very cool artwork. Very, very cool artwork. I would love to talk about Jamie Hewlett. I think more people should definitely know about his work. No, it doesn't have to be a designer breed. You just like, I'm just curious what people's favorite breeds are. Shane says, I have a bunch of Lone Wolf and Cub comics I got a good deal on. I don't even want them anymore. Oh. It's too bad. My local comic shop has its own dog. That's awesome. That's so nice. Actually, I've got a local comic shop. I don't know if that employee is still there, but they had a dog that would be in regularly. He loves licking customers. I don't mind that, but I'm sure some people get nervous about their comics or something. Oh, don't lick my comic. Staffordshire Bull Terrier all the way. Grew up with them all my life. Aww. French Bulldog. Yeah, they can be sweet. I agree. I met a French Bulldog, and it was a sweetie pie. My favorite dogs tend to be like the really smart ones, but those are also like generally the most active ones that you seem to have to like, you know, really be able to invest in playing with them a lot or training them and stuff like that. So that can be a challenge of its own. Corgi because of Cowboy Bebop. They are cute. Jack Russell Terrier. Siberian Husky. I like mutts. Mutts can be the sweetest. 175-pound Saint Bernard. 175 pounds? Oh my God. Oh my God, Steve. That is huge. I meant a Labradoodle, I think, as a designer breed. I prefer shepherd types. Grew up with collies and Aussies. Australian cattle dogs are the best, but a lot of work at the start. Yeah. My sister adopted a border collie, and he really changed my life because before that, I was fairly scared of dogs. I'd been bitten a few times as a little kid. I was bit by our dog at home. Actually, more than once. My parents, like, recently, like, I was talking to them about it. I was like, boy, it was a shame that, like, we kept Ginger in the basement so much, you know? Like, I wish I had bonded with her more as a kid. And they were like, yeah, we hated doing that, but, like, she had bitten you more than once as a kid, and you were like a toddler, and we were really nervous about it. So it just sort of became the compromise we made. I don't think that people would do the same thing today, but it was a different era, and that's what they did. I hated hearing about that. But, like, so there was that, and I do remember a little bit, like, you know, that she bit me. I tried to love her, but, and I did, but I wasn't super close to her. And then I got bit, like, on my paper route. And it just sort of made me a little apprehensive about dogs, because, like, they'd bark at me also during the paper route, like, you know, and that got intimidating after a while. Like, that you'd come by and you'd just associate deep, angry barks with, like, dogs. Even though they're just trying to defend it, like, from, like, to them, like, a little bit of a stranger. But I just like encountered it so much, you know. But my sister adopted this border collie, and he was just so loving. He was so smart and obedient, and he really just changed my life. And I do love dogs now. I really do. So that was Oreo, and I still miss him a lot. Like, I still think of that dog quite a bit, and he's been gone for a long time now. He's been gone for, like, I think over 10 years now. But I still think about him a lot, and I'd love to get a dog like that, but, you know, he was a lot of work. Like, the whole family had to pitch in sometimes to help take care of them. You were not happy that I was going to adopt a dog. You know, what can I say, Gene? I was scared of them. Like, I can't say that I wasn't. I mean, that's what I was. I was scared of them. Now I'm not, okay? So it was a change. I'm glad you adopted him. It changed my life. I love Oreo. I love him so much. I miss him a lot. 12 years. 12 years. Great dog. Great dog. Love taking that guy for walks. I also got bitten by dogs when I was a kid, and that made me nervous to be near dogs. It carries a lot of weight. It doesn't even have to be a bad bite. We also, like, beyond, like, getting barked at, like, on the paper route, getting bitten a few times. We also, when I was really young, our next door neighbor, I was friends with, like, the kid who was my age, but they had a dog that was dangerous. Like, he was always tied up on a leash. And I remember one time, it was like the sun was down, there was a knock at the door. My parents opened it, and I saw this, like, you know, teenage guy there, and his arm was, like, pretty shredded. And he was like, please, I need help. Like, a dog just bit me. I need to get to the hospital. And it was the dog next door. He'd, like, gotten off his leash and, like, really attack this kid. And I just remember that visual, like, of, like, seeing this stranger at the door once, like, the sun had gone down and he was bleeding. And so these things stay with you, you know. They sort of form, like, a type of, like, PTSD a little bit. They can. But that doesn't mean that dogs are bad. I've like figured out that, like, you know, sometimes they bark, and that's okay. That doesn't necessarily mean be scared of them. I just had a couple early rough experiences that, like, you know, put me off for a while. But once I got to have one up close and personal that, like, became very loyal, really changed my take on it. So I like dogs. I like dogs a lot. Border Collies are the most amazing dogs. No breed compares. If I could, I would love to have one, but I know that I need to be there a lot more than, like, what I can be there. Dark Rays says that they love pitbulls. I've, like I say, at work, like, customers are allowed to bring in their dogs, and a lot of times I will ask, like, you know, is it okay to pet your dog or something? And boy, can pit bulls be sweet. They just have these big, giant domes that just look like they're all skull and muscle. But then their tongue hangs out, and they just seem to, like, really love the attention. What are my thoughts on Mark Silvestri? I love Mark Silvestri. You know, Mark Silvestri isn't someone I've kept up with that much. And I loved his X-Men. He was drawing X-Men when I started collecting it monthly. And then I loved his era of Wolverine with Larry Hama writing it. I just wasn't super into some of the stuff he started doing at Image. Like, he did at first, what was it called? Cyberforce. And that was fine. It was a little sort of X-Men derivative, but it was fine. His art was really good. I was invested enough. Also, I was younger, and so I was invested enough. But then, like, he did Witchblade, and that one just didn't, like, connect with me at all. So I sort of fell off keeping up with Mark Silvestri on a regular basis. But I always respected him a lot. I thought he was, as far as some of those Image creators, like, sort of underrated, to be honest. I think he was, like, so good. Yeah, you like how a pit bull looks like it's smiling. I agree. They do seem to be looking like they just always got a smile. So, yeah, it's too bad that certain dogs have, like, a reputation of being sort of, like, dangerous or something, because I sincerely think any dog can be socialized properly, trained well. I don't think any breed is inherently, like, a bad breed. I really don't. Maybe, like, an expert on dogs would feel a little different. But I've come around, and I really like dogs. I like them a lot. Which my sister's probably going like, no, you don't, because, when we lived together, I was scared of them and stuff. But I don't know. That's something that's changed about me. And it's nice to know that you can change, that's like a constant debate is, do people change or don't they? I think people can change in some ways. I think they can. What should I have for dinner tonight, folks? Keeping in mind that I don't have sugar or carbs, really. So it's probably going to be a salad. Unless you've got a really great suggestion that I haven't thought of. I need dinner still. People make dogs mean. I agree. I think dogs are sweet. Mark Silvestri is creating new comics for the Darkness in 2022 after his Kickstarter was a success. I would take a look at that. I would take a look at it. You've met Mark Silvestri? Yeah. I loved the Immortal Hulk series. I made a video on that, Richard. I really, really liked it. I think it had a reason for existing, and I liked it. I liked it all the way through. My thoughts on Erik Larsen. I'm a big fan of Erik Larsen. My sister suggested I should have salad. Good suggestion. That's good. I'll probably do that. I dare say Erik Larsen is my favorite of the Image founders. Yeah. Definitely has, like, stayed doing his own thing the longest. Like, yes, Todd McFarlane has been involved in Spawn since the beginning, but, he stopped writing and drawing pretty early on. Just did, like, inking and some co-plotting for a long time, and then started, like, writing it. And he has been writing it for a long time, but he hasn't been doing all the writing or all the art since the beginning, and Erik Larsen has on Savage Dragon. So I just sort of, I'm not taking away from Todd at all. Like, he's accomplished a lot with Spawn. He has. But I admire greatly what Erik Larsen has done since 92. So that means we're coming up on, 30 years? Yeah, coming up on 30 years of him doing that. And I think he does a great job. I every once in a while he does stuff in his comics where he sort of, like, makes certain female characters, like, overtly sexy, where I don't think it's at all necessary. I think it's, like, a little creepy, to be honest. That's the only knock I have against him. I like his art. I really like his writing. I think he's super creative, and he has a lot of love and respect for guys like, Jack Kirby and a lot of the originals. He seems to collaborate well with others. The only thing I'll do is I think some of his sex stuff is a little creepy. I read, like, a recent Dragon anniversary issue, and, like, Dragon was just having all this sex with this girl who had started, like, the characters in Dragon age in real time, and so she had been, like, really young initially, and since it's still fictional, it just didn't feel like, I didn't think drew her that much older looking. It creeped me out. That's the only thing. But I think he's a great guy. I think he's a great artist, a great writer. Probably does not get the recognition he truly deserves. I think he's fantastic. I've liked so much of what he did. I loved his Spider-Man when I was reading that monthly. I read his entire Spider-Man run, and I'm not talking just about Amazing Spider-Man, because he also wrote and drew just the adjectiveless Spider-Man title for a while, and I think he did some great stuff there. The overly sexy women is a product of when he was coming up. I think so too. I do. I think that that's just sort of a thing that was like in the 90s. There was like that bad girl era, and it was what was popular, and it was like, I think he just, I mean, he must like it, but he just sort of came up with it, and it stayed. And that, I like beautiful people, I do, but like the stuff he emphasizes isn't always like sexy to me. Like he'll just draw a character with like gigantic fake boobs, and I'm like, that's cartoonish more than sexy to me. That's cartoonish more than sexy. But it seems like several people sort of are agreeing with me there, like that, like with my complaint. And I honestly had not heard other people talk about it, so it's kind of encouraging to hear that I'm not the only one that was a little weirded out by the direction he goes there. But everything else I like. I think he does good action. I think he really loves cosmic stuff, and he does that well, but I do prefer his more grounded sort of street level criminals and stuff. I loved the early stuff with like, the Vicious Circle gang in Savage Dragon, and when the dragon was a cop. I also thought it was pretty good when he worked for the government as like, essentially not a spy, I guess, but like, a government agent. I thought that was good. I think I'm done with my drawing, by the way. And I just the cosmic stuff in Savage Dragon I don't love as much. I will say that. I don't love as much, but some of it's good. I have no complaints really about any of it. I could talk about Eric Larson a lot. I got to do an episode about him. Either an episode or like, someday maybe have the opportunity to interview him. That would be interesting. Yeah, I think I'm about ready to call this drawing, because all I'd be doing is just like rendering like more and more fur. I think at this point, I think I've blocked out like where I'd have the shadows and stuff like that. And yeah, so I've got this like guy, like really large lump, like arms, kind of like not super long legs. Anyway, you can see the heavy Walt Simonson influence in Eric Larson's work. Well, they do both have an angular style. I'll agree with that. I love Walt Simonson too, though. So yeah, interview. Yeah, I'd love to interview Eric if the opportunity presented itself. I would love that. I would sincerely love it. I've talked to him in person several times. I don't think he'd remember me. I don't think, because it's, now that I think of it, it's been a while since I last saw him. But I've met him several times, mostly through Robert, but a couple times on my own. He's always had interesting stuff to say, and I will say he draws very unique. He draws left-handed, if I'm remembering correct, and he holds his pencil in like, let me try to remember how he holds his pencil, because it's like, it's almost like he grips it between like some fingers, really gets a tight grip on it. Sorry, this is just like to block some of the reflected light, piece of paper, and then he'll like hold his whole arm, and he draws with his whole arm. A lot of us artists, like, and it's not a great habit, but we'll like sort of like do the, like, we almost like lock our arm in place and we'll start like working with our wrist. That's not a great way to draw. That can also lead to like carpal tunnel and other problems. If you can control your drawing with your whole arm, you'll have better overall control eventually. It requires like, more muscle control and like better muscle in your arm, but like the more you can like draw with your whole arm, the more control you have. And he seems to have a tremendous amount of control and can work really fast, so you got to admire that. I did read Monster by Barry Windsor Smith. I talked about it in my top 10 horror comics. I listed that as one of my top 10 horror comics. It will be, spoiler alert, one of my top 10 comics for 2021 when I come up with my list at the end of the year. There's no question it's going to be towards the top of that. It's fantastic. A 32-year in the making comic, and I may make an episode about it sometime, because there's a lot to talk about behind the scenes that's interesting. We'll see. What are your thoughts on bands and musicians getting their own comics? Doesn't generally appeal to me that much, even like if it was like my favorite here's what I like instead of like a band getting their own comic. I like comics that are biographies. Okay, so for instance, there was a David Bowie comic that came out last year with artwork by Mike Allred. I love David Bowie. That was really interesting. Like if they could create a book like that for, you know, I don't know, Freddie Mercury, or like who's popular today. Like I don't know. I'm trying to think of like somebody more. I date myself sometimes, but anyway, like a biographical comics I find very interesting, but a comic that sort of like, you know, fictionalizes their adventures or something doesn't really interest me. Anyway, Savage Dragon does have compendiums, Jameel Frost. Just to be clear, maybe they're not as easy to get at, but Savage Dragon definitely has compendiums. It's probably the best way to catch up on it. I bet you if you look on eBay or Amazon, they shouldn't be going for that much. I know that I've seen them in even some of my local comic book stores. I've seen the Savage Dragon compendiums. There's a lot of them. It's a great way to catch up on Savage Dragon. I'm a recent subscriber and I love your channel. I'll have to catch up on all your videos. Thanks. Not too many on this channel yet, although I do have some ideas for content here. I will try to figure out how to do vlogging better. And when I go to a comic convention, when I travel, visit like, you know, another comic book store or just an interesting place like, you know, Japan that has like, you know, nerd culture things, I'll try to get more video and edit those into videos that I'll be putting on this channel. If I can build this channel up a little bit more, I'd feel more comfortable doing interviews with creators on this channel. Right now, I don't think that would necessarily interest them until like I build up the subscriber count here. I think they'd prefer to do it on the Comic Tropes channel, where there's more like, you know, 150,000 as compared to 2,000. That's a big difference. But I really get the sense that most people on the Comic Tropes channel only want to see fully edited, complete videos about comics. So this is sort of going to become slowly my place where I put anything that isn't quite that. Like I've got some ideas for some vlogging, some interviews, reviews of like, you know, like the recent comics. I'm calling this weekly live stream. I intend to just keep doing that. I'm calling it the weekly spinner rack. I've got a bunch of ideas for this. You guys have been fantastic. Thanks for the questions. Definitely help move things along. It's been notch over 2 hours, so I think this is a good time to call it. It's also a good time for me to figure out what I'm going to do for dinner. I'll be back next week. I don't know what I'm drawing yet, but you know, I'll be reviewing whatever comics I've picked up, taking your questions. Thank you for helping this grow. Thank you for all the growth on the Comic Tropes channel. It's really had a fantastic month. And maybe that's purely because I'm putting out regular weekly content again, but it's really growing well. And I'm also getting a lot of comments, and YouTube loves that engagement. YouTube loves to share stuff to new people if there's a lot of comments on a video. And I'm sure a lot of you have left comments like that because there's a lot of comments. And the vast majority of it is incredibly positive. It's extra insights that I'll get jealous that I didn't think of in the video. Funny jokes that I wish I thought of. Of course, there's always going to be some people that are like complaining about stuff. I pretty much just ignore that because I just got to do my own thing. I do have some new merch coming to Chef. I didn't expect to get asked, but since you asked, let's take a minute and I'll show you what I got. Let's take a minute here. This might take a moment to open. I didn't expect to get asked that. Ugh. I've got some new merch. I don't know how I'm going to go about selling this to all of you yet. That's one of the things. Like, I don't know how to fulfill this yet. You know, the fulfillment aspect is the trick. I'm trying to figure out how to open this dumb thing. I need scissors or something. I don't have any scissors. Oh, I've got an X-Acto knife. Give me a moment, and you'll see. Give me a minute here to get an X-Acto knife, and I'm going to unveil the new merchandise that I have for the first time. Where's the X-Acto? I thought it was right here. That's probably not good that I don't know where a knife is. That's probably not great. It's just not the kind of thing you want to not know where it is. Sorry, I obviously wasn't planning on doing this, so bear with me. Unboxing. Yes, I'm trying to do an unboxing. Trying. Let's see. I'm going to keep looking. Let me see if I can get some help here. Yeah, could you bring me some scissors? Right. No, it's not showing. All right. My fiance, Chrissy, is going to help me. She's going to bring down a pair of scissors, and she just told me, make sure that the address label isn't showing. That's a reasonable request. I trust you guys, but this would be online for anybody to see. I don't want... I'm still sad I don't have a Comic Tropes pin. Well, I will be sending those out soon, too. I've got some amazing Comic Tropes pins. Thank you. Thank you very much. As soon as I finish this, I'm going to get some dinner and all. All right, unboxing. Here we go. Big box. Big, overflowing box. And I would have a better shot if I knew I was going to do this. So thank you for just bearing with me while I cut into this beast. I just got this recently. Obviously, I haven't even seen it yet. But I think I know what it'll all look like. Whew. They really tape this up well. Sorry I'm not talking too much while I'm focusing on cutting. That's what you want to hear from a butcher, but not necessarily a artist YouTuber guy. Sorry, I'm doing all this cutting. I can't focus on conversation when I'm cutting things. Oh, I'm such a creep. All right, almost in. Almost. Here we go. Oh, this looks awesome. I'm excited to show you guys this. All right, all right. There we go. I'll just pull one of these out because they're all the same. You ready? Ta-da! This is, I've made Infotron plushes. Infotron is my robotic sidekick on my show. I'm going to use him on this channel for a video that I'm working on coming up. Infotron himself is going to host something here. Let me pull out some more. So we got we got a world of Infotron here. Little stuffed animals. They're really soft, I will say that, and they're sturdy. So I designed these. I tried to make him a little simplified and friendly. He's got little winking eyes, because couldn't add a smile here, so I tried to show it in the eyes. I tried to make him friendly. I know not every adult wants a stuffed animal, but I think that enough people will want one of these. So I'll be making these available soon as I can figure out how to handle fulfillment, because the last thing I really want to do is have to mail individual ones out myself and take a payment individually, one at a time through PayPal. So if people have any suggestions for a good way to handle fulfillment, I would love to hear that, because I now have t-shirts on the Comic Tropes channel from Teespring. On the Comic Tropes channel, you can see those underneath each video. I've got enamel pins that I'll be offering. First, I'm going to get them out to certain patrons, and then I got to mail them to others. And then I'll have these Infotron plushes, and you'll be seeing more content soon from Infotron, so that you'll know what that is. But yeah, I think that they did a good job. I think that this company did a good job. I made a few hundred of these. So I'm excited to offer those soon. Will it hang out with Puppet Chris? Yeah. Many adults are buying plushies. You have no idea how soft these are. They could be, Chrissy, it says, they could be another pillow for Chrissy. Chrissy has a fair amount of pillows in the bed, folks. He's got his simple 1950s boots and sort of mitten claw arms and some, like, I really simplified, like, his chest sensor. But this is my 1950s robot as a soft, oh, guys, you have no idea how soft this is. I'd buy a pin in Infotron. Well, I appreciate that. I think that there probably are some people out there that would buy stuff like this. So, in the meantime, if you want to buy merch, I have several designs for T-shirts. If you go to like YouTube and look at like the description right underneath one of the Comic Tropes videos, you should see a link to my Teespring store, or if you went to Teespring and looked up Comic Tropes, you'd see that. There's one I really like where I write the different names for comic books from different languages in a comic book style font that country uses. For instance, like bande dessinée, I've got like in a font that's been used in certain Belgian comics. And I've got like manga with like some katakana over it to kind of look like the famous Akira logo. Comic books is in sort of, a traditional comic book font. Historietas is in a font like you'd see in like an Argentinian comic maybe. Fumetti is in a font you'd read in like, say, Dylan Dog from Italy. So that's a t-shirt like I really recommend if you want to support and get some Comic Tropes merch. There's that on Teespring. I'll have Infotron and some enamel pins available, like really high quality sparkly enamel pins, by the way. They're really nice. Are they called enamel? They're metal. Maybe enamel is the wrong word. So I'll have some stuff soon. Just trying to figure out how to fulfill it. Like, I just don't want to have to handle all of that myself, like, if I don't have to. That just sounds like a nightmare. Anyway, so that was fun. Last minute unboxing. Surprise! Thank you all to those of you who stayed till the end of the show. You got to see a little something extra. And I'm already working hard on the next Comic Tropes video. I'm pretty excited about that. I think that people will like that one. It's a deep dive into some more modern day creators that I think a lot of people like, but maybe are not getting their full due, not getting paid quite right. And yeah, that'll do it for tonight. So I'm going to take off. Thanks so much for staying all the way to the end. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I need to say. I don't think so. So feel free to check me out on Twitter if you're curious. If I forgot anything, I'll put it there. At CTropes, as in just look up Comic Tropes on Twitter. At CTropes on Twitter is like my primary channel. You can see me there. And until next week, I'll have another